I definitely think that AI is going to fundamentally shake up the way work happens and the way we work. The negative side is, yes, there's going to be job cuts in certain fields, but that doesn't mean that those jobs are gone forever. And the way we kind of think about AI specifically is we want to kind of use it more as it's a non-negotiable tool. I say this almost every Monday. I'm like, hey, if ChatGPT is not your most used app this week, we're going to have a problem, right? I think it's something that really has revolutionized the way our small team works. It's something that's really kind of 10x our productivity.
What are some big challenges or setbacks that you face personally?
First post we made on LinkedIn actually kind of flopped. In our heads, we were like, yo, we're gonna post this on LinkedIn, get 10,000 users, and we're gonna be billionaires, right? In the first 3 to 4 months of our product launch, we had very, very low adoption. Nothing we really tried was working just to get us that critical mass of users. Mind you, we were three 18, 19-year-olds that studied purely computer science in college. I think we pitched to a lot of VCs before we ended up getting into YC. Candidly, when we got to the YC interview, the partner actually said, hey, Michael, I've actually heard this exact same idea pitched dozens of times, and we've rejected almost all of them. I'm just curious what makes you different and why you think you're the one that's actually going to crack this industry.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jerome Dwight, and today I'm joined by one of the brightest young minds in technology and entrepreneurship, Michael Yan. He's the founder and CEO of Simplify, an AI-powered hiring platform that's helped over 1 million job seekers land their dream roles. Featured on Forbes 30 Under 30 and backed by top investors like Y Combinator, Craft Ventures, and George Ruan, founder of Honey, Michael is redefining how the world finds and hires talent. We dive into what it really takes to launch a venture-backed startup and how Michael is helping simplify one of the most broken systems in the modern economy, hiring. We explore the lessons he's learned working with some of the sharpest minds in Silicon Valley and the mindset needed to solve real problems in a noisy world. This episode is full of game-changing insights, so let's go. So today I'm excited to have Michael Yan on the podcast. I found Michael through my extensive research on who's actually doing some cool work in AI. And Michael represents to me what future entrepreneurs are going to look like. Bold, courageous, great story, and pushing past the boundaries. Michael's focus is on AI in the human resources field, making the job search process easier for millions of Americans. So I'm super excited to have you, Michael. We got a lot to cover, so welcome to the podcast.
Really appreciate it, Jerome. Super pumped to be here.
All right, so Michael, you're like a pretty impressive, still a very young guy, Forbes 30 Under 30, and really someone I see as a challenger for many reasons. But I want to go back to your early days. You know, what got you into entrepreneurship? You were telling me before the podcast started shooting that you grew up in a traditional household where entrepreneurship, tech wasn't really, the norm. So talk me through your early days and where you got that spark to jump into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not gonna lie, when we first kind of had the idea for Simplify, I didn't really envision it to become a big company or a company at all for that matter. So you're absolutely right. Neither of my parents really worked in tech. My dad worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and my mom for 20 years worked as a researcher at the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, at the U.S. government. And I guess I always wanted to build something, but I guess when Simplify started, we kind of just wanted to solve a problem that we were dealing with, and that specifically was how painful it was to find a job for the first time. I was telling you earlier, I applied to over 150 jobs, got rejected from 149 of them, and I even fell for a job scam at one point, and that was like a really humbling process, to say the least. So when we started together, we just really wanted to build a tool that made the process of applying to jobs easier. That was it. Very basic thing that we coded up in our dorm room at Stanford, and posted that online, and it ended up taking off. So I hate to say it, but the beginning of Simplify was almost kind of an accident, and less so something super planned.
Wow, exciting journey, as is most innovations that start in university dorm rooms. And for you guys, it was really solving a problem that you yourself were experiencing, which was the job search process. So, let's double click on that. Like, what is the actual problem you guys were solving for then and even today?
Yeah, that's great. And it's definitely changed a lot. So back then, which is still a problem today, when you apply to a job, you're basically filling out the same information on the same form hundreds of times. So all of these companies use these hiring softwares known as applicant tracking softwares, or ATSs. These are the Workdays of the world, the Greenhouse, Lever, Ashby HQs of the world. And effectively, it's a way for them to process applications and organize them on their own back end. But what that looks like for candidates is filling out your first name, last name, where you went to college, your last 5 jobs, like a description of why you're a good fit, like hundreds of times for every single company. And it's clearly not a candidate-friendly process, and it's something that hasn't been changed for the last, over the last decade. So when we first started Simplify, we just wanted to build something to address that aspect. So what we came up with was a browser extension that would take all of your information and fill it in for you automatically. So I think we like to brand ourselves as like honey for job applications at the time. And kind of since then, we've grown into a full spectrum solution. So we help you actually get matched with opportunities that fit your background and your skills and kind of the career goals you have. We help you generate resumes, cover letters, and of course, we still do help you autofill applications, but now it's just more of a minor part of our product.
What made you see this as a scalable opportunity at such a young age? Here you are, experiencing a problem that, pain point that many young people or even older job seekers face, which is the endless amount of data you've got to fill in over and over again in a job search platform. I know for a fact my daughter's in the phase of job search, and she complains about how long it takes to fill out these forms to get some basic data. So I can see how you guys identified that, but at what point did you say, you know what, there's a real big opportunity here for us to serve the market?
No, that's a great question. And to be honest, we didn't think about it. Like I said at the beginning, we weren't really thinking about it. We just had this problem that was really painful to us. It was painful to our peers. And we were like, we're spending all this money going to college, learning how to code. Let's actually build something that's going to make my life easier. But I think when we started growing, and I think the big unlock for me was the fact that people were actually asking us to save more of their personal data. People were like, oh, I want you to save my home address so you can fill it in for me. I want you to save like kind of my top 5 skills so you can fill that in for me. Probably the first time in internet history that people have been volunteering their data to be saved on an unknown platform. But this gave us this idea, which was, for the longest of times, in the process of finding a job, the elites, so whether that's like your actors, artists, or execs, would often have like a privatized support in the form of like personal recruiters that would make their lives easier, helping them find opportunities, negotiate salaries, things of that nature. But for everyday professionals and students, this was never accessible, right? These are very expensive services. So I think for the longest of times, this wasn't accessible to the average person. But with LLMs and with AI, we believe that, with enough data, we can actually help you find the exact job you're looking for if you tell us what your requirements are, what your deal breakers are, what you're good at. So our vision quickly became, from learning that people wanted to actually give us more of their data, hey, why don't we become like a personalized talent agent for every professional? And this is possible if we have enough data from job seekers.
I love how you have really, broadened your offering into the entire life cycle of the job search journey. So talk to me about, your kind of mindset when it comes to innovation. You built a product, a V1, it was good, you innovated. Were there some pivots you had to make along the way to kind of broaden the product, go deep in certain categories? How do you think about innovation?
100%. Well, it's bold of you, and very appreciate you saying that V1 was good, because it very much wasn't. But I think that's the first thing for that we really hold true to ourselves. Like, we have a general sense of what people want, but you never know until you ship things out. So I like to tell my team, which still is very small. We've got 7 people in person right now. If you're proud of what you're launching it too late, right? And I think the key insight here is we want to get user feedback as fast as possible. I think Sam Altman has a quote where it's like, the speed of iteration and getting feedback, if you can shorten that cycle, you become like a very impressive company, right? I think something to that effect. And I think for us, when we first launched V1, funny enough, we expected a lot more adoption than we got. And I think during that process is what we realized, that, hey, autofilling jobs is cool. People deal with this problem, but a bigger problem is that people don't even know what jobs are at their disposal, right? Like, they'll be on the Indeeds of the world or the LinkedIns of the world, and they'll be recommended jobs that have nothing to do with kind of their backgrounds. Right. And it really stems from this lack of transparency, this lack of data that these platforms have on what people actually want. So we actually moved relatively quickly from our first V1 autofill product into V2, which included a job matches. So after you applied to a job, it would show you 2 more jobs that we think you might be interested in.
I love the notion of speed to innovation. It's something that I subscribe to. It's one of our challenger principles here at Boomerang. How do you get the rest of your team to buy into that speed principle, where you want to get to market, may not be perfect, but you want progress? How have you, as a young leader, rallied even your small team to move at your pace?
Well, I first want to say I'm still figuring things out. I've actually never managed anyone before this company, so it's definitely been a learning experience, to say the least. But I'm super grateful for my team. We're all part of what we do in our screening process is we don't really look at age, for obvious reasons, but we look at people that are kind of youthful in the way they think. And we're very fortunate to have people that are very excited about trying new things and adopting new things. That comes in the context of trying new productivity softwares or trying new kind of technologies that we're messing around with on the team. But it also comes when it comes to us kind of changing our frame of thinking, which is, it's hard to be able to ship something that you aren't super happy with, or it's hard to kind of listen to feedback that maybe you don't agree with. But I think at our core, we want to build the best product in the industry. None of us really know how to get there. The only way really to get there is just try a bunch of things, throw a bunch of things at the wall, and measure what sticks. And I think that's something that we've really been emphasizing from day one. So it starts in our screening process, and I think we've just gotten really lucky from the people we've picked up.
So I want to talk a bit about the corporate side of things. Now, you've been very successful in getting funded by YC. And Y Combinator is not easy to crack and get funded to. So talk to me about that experience. Like, how did you prepare for it? We have a lot of entrepreneurs worldwide that listen to this podcast. What were some of the things that you did that made you successful in getting that raise?
100%. And I think it was hard for us first time around, to say the least. I think we pitched to a lot of VCs before we ended up getting into YC, and it was a tough process. But I think the core learning that we took away, especially since I was 19 at the time, is that when you are 19, they're not really going to be betting on the idea that you're building as much as they are betting on you as a founder, right? So why are you the racehorse they should bet on in this race, right? Candidly, when we got to the YC interview, the partner actually said, "Hey, Michael, I've actually heard this exact same idea pitched dozens of times, and we've rejected almost all of them. I'm just curious what makes you different and why you think you're the one that's actually going to crack this industry. And while we have by no means cracked the industry, I think we've gotten a lot closer. And I really just leaned into kind of why personally I found finding a job so difficult, coming from my background and even at Stanford, which should make finding a job I still really struggled my first time around. And I think in telling a story and emphasizing kind of our backgrounds and why kind of we were excited about this and why we had the unique skill sets to kind of tackle a problem in the consumer space, I think that's kind of like what really helped us. And again, that's what we did our second time around when we leaned into our seed in 2023. Same story and kind of just really leaning into why we were the right people to build in this space.
It always impresses me when you come across young entrepreneurs at 19 years of age pitching VCs with these transformative ideas. Where did you get that courage, that boldness? Was it something you learned at home? So talk to me a bit about how did Michael become so brave and courageous?
This is funny. I think this was always something that was frowned upon when I was a kid, but I think it has definitely helped a lot. And I think it's generally a good trait to have if you're trying to move up in the world in business and in entrepreneurship, which is having like almost irrational confidence. Obviously, we should draw a line here between what is like delusion and what is irrational confidence. But I think when it came to kind of pitching to VCs, obviously, I think before the call, my mom, who is a very traditional woman that I love dearly, was like, aren't you nervous? Like, aren't there people that are just infinitely times smarter than you, infinitely times more successful than you, coming from way better backgrounds, pitching to these same people? I'm proud of you for like not like peeing your pants on these calls. And I'm like, that's a terrible thing to hear before a meeting. But I think for me, it was just like, I always was just like, I think I can do it. If I'm confident in kind of what I'm building and what I'm excited about, like I don't really care about the outcome. I'm just going to give it my best shot, right? For obvious reasons, I have not tried out for the NBA because I'm not very confident there. But I think this level of irrational confidence that is something you can develop, right? I mean, I think I read a quote when I was in school that some of the most transformative companies were founded by people with very little context on the industry. And it's not the industry execs that are transforming the industry. It's people that have no idea how the industry works, that just see a problem, want to give it a shot, right? And I think that helped us like be able to kind of walk in the door many times to be like, you know what, we're going to give kind of a fresh perspective on what we think is a more traditional industry.
And that confidence has gotten you, some top tier angel investors like George Wan Ruan, who's the founder of Honey and now VP at PayPal. Like, that's some impressive credentials to get inside of your company. How did that come about?
Yeah. We've been really fortunate to have some pretty exciting people on our cap table. We have Craft Ventures as our other institutional fund. George is great. We have a ton of really accomplished people, including executives at LinkedIn and companies that we kind of almost see ourselves as competitive with. But I think for us, we got introduced through George after we had pitched ourselves as like the honey for job applications in the early days. And one of our initial angel investors was like, hey, like, do you want to meet George? He's a close friend. And he was really, really genuine, really nice guy, who obviously extremely successful. One of I think the largest tech exit in Los Angeles history. And he gave us some really insightful advice early on and kind of like how to think about getting user feedback, especially in the form of a browser extension, which is not like not that many companies use browser extensions or like kind of build browser extensions. So that was really, really exciting for us.
And now Simplify's sort of gone past 1 million users, I think, and growing fast. You as a young CEO, looking out into the future, AI is like all around us now, and you're obviously incorporating AI into your platform. What is your perspective on AI? We get a lot of voices on, it's going to make life easier, it's a threat. You obviously have a lot of runway ahead of you, and as you look down into the future, how does AI impact the job search experience? And then generally, how does AI impact life as we know it?
Right. This is, well,
Big question.
I should great question. I should preface that I'm not one of those researchers in this field. But I did skim over this article, AI 2027, which predicts like kind of where AI is going to be in the next few years, and it really shook me to my core. But without kind of being too doom and gloom, I definitely think that AI is going to fundamentally shake up the way work happens and the way we work. But I definitely think there is going to always be a need for humans in some capacity, right? Like right now, the need for very junior or entry level software engineers has drastically decreased with the code generation abilities of some of these LLMs. But the requirement for people to kind of think through product flows and create more deep or like kind of rich product experiences with the help of AI is still here, right? So I guess the negative side is, yes, there's going to be job cuts in kind of like certain fields, but that doesn't mean that like those jobs are gone forever, and the skills that you cultivate through becoming an engineer are still valuable in many aspects of kind of product development. But yeah, I mean, I think for our team, the way we kind of think about AI specifically is we want to kind of use it more as it's a non-negotiable tool, right? So funny enough, if I actually kind of say this almost every Monday, I'm like, hey, if ChatGPT is not your most used app this week, I think we're gonna have a problem, right? And I think it's something that really has revolutionized the way, I mean, just our small team works. We pass everything through chat, at least on like the marketing and business side, and it's something that's really kind of 10x our productivity.
Great. And so I want to go back the last few years in terms of, I'm sure it hasn't all been rosy. What are some big challenges or setbacks that you face personally, and, as well as at the company, where you had to kind of dig deep and keep moving forward despite the adversity?
Absolutely. A couple stories. I think the first is, I think a little bit of a lie I told at the beginning of this call was that when we posted on LinkedIn for the first time, things blew up and everything kind of just like took off from there. That was not entirely true. So the first post we made on LinkedIn actually kind of flopped. It was like it did like relatively decent, but I think the important people saw it. So some investors saw it, some cool people saw it, and we ended up being able to kick off some conversations. But we got maybe like a couple hundred signups from that. And in our heads, we were like, yo, we're going to post this on LinkedIn, get 10,000 users. 10,000 is going to become 100,000, 100K is going to become 1 million, and we're going to be billionaires, right? That was not the case. I think in the first like 3 to 4 months of our product launch, we had very low adoption. We were posting on LinkedIn, we were blasting it to kind of campus mailing lists, and nothing we really tried was working just to get us that critical mass of users to really start iterating on with feedback. And we started having to brainstorm how to market a product. And mind you, we were 3 like 18, 19-year-olds that studied purely computer science in college. And it was very new for us, to say the least, to figure out what marketing and business looked like. And I think the first marketing idea we had was actually, so the TV show Squid Game was trending at the time. And we had this idea of printing out these business cards that were like in the show, that kind of like the evil people were handing out to like the people playing the games. And we had this idea of printing those business cards, and on the back it would say, no need to play games, you can find a job on Simplify instead, right? And I was like, this is great. Let's go hand these out. So we ended up printing out 10,000 of these business cards, and my co-founders and I were just handing them out on college campuses in the Bay Area. Would drive around, hand them out. And funny enough, that actually got us the exposure we needed. People started posting about it on Reddit. People shared it on LinkedIn, and within the next couple of weeks, we ended up growing relatively quickly to our first 10,000 users, and that made the rest of the kind of the growth process a lot easier. I know this is a very early stage story. We've dealt with many issues since then, but I think it's something that really showed us that what you think is going to work the first time around often doesn't, right? We thought that posting online, maybe running a couple ads, having people share with their friends would lead to like this exponential hockey stick growth. But really what ended up working was like a weird growth hack that kind of got people to look back and give it a second look and finally give us a shot.
That's the beauty of entrepreneurship. When doors close, it typically, usually means there's a new one that's opening that's even better. So I'm encouraged that that spirit continued on with you guys. In the last moments as we wrap up here, this has been a fascinating conversation on entrepreneurship. What are some of the lessons you want to share with fellow early entrepreneurs who are watching the show? What are some of the lessons you've learned that you'd love to share with them?
Yeah, I think, you mentioned a really insightful statement earlier, which was, like what gave us the confidence to get started at like a young age, right? And this is something that, funny enough, I didn't think about at the time, but I actually kind of psych myself out now that I'm a bit older, which was like, you definitely want a level of irrational confidence when you're breaking into kind of a new industry, right? People always are going to look at you and be like, hey, like, aren't there smarter people out there that probably thought about this before? And my advice to you as kind of a young entrepreneur is, if there's a problem that you find extremely painful, that you look around and multiple other people are agreeing with you, it doesn't matter if there are smarter people out there. It just means that the problem still exists. So don't be afraid to give it a shot, right? I'm not saying go sell your house, drop out of college and do something crazy, but there are steps you can take to start trying to solve, whatever problem this may be in your life, that could eventually turn into a really, really big business. And that being said, I think, yeah, for us, I'm just really glad that I didn't really think too much about kind of my level of
overthinking.
Yeah, before jumping into it. But that's kind of what I like to tell kind of people I mentor and people I talk to today.
Awesome. Well, Michael Yan, some great lessons in entrepreneurship. You're building a fantastic business, Simplify. We're going to look out for bigger and better things coming out of Simplify and yourself, and we'll have you back on the show and to share all your great success. So thank you very much for being on the show, and we talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.